Hey, welcome back to Beyond the Rings podcast. This is another episode of Short Stories. Again, the idea is we're going to share some short stories so that you can kind of get an idea of what is happening during the Olympics when it comes to the gospel going forth. Not a lot of people think about the Olympics other than, they see the big media splash, and it is a worldwide focus. And it is the highest athletic achievement in worldwide sports during that time. And so it really is an exciting time. And beyond the sports, there's the whole country pride. And then you have the different cultures of the locations where the Olympics are being held. And so the Olympics are an amazing place to be engaging in gospel conversations. Beyond the Rings Olympic ministry is what God has placed on my heart, given my experience with the Olympics, and then moving forward into Paris and forward, adding to ministries that are on the ground using pen trading to engage in gospel conversations with people literally from all over the world. I encourage you to go to beyondtherings.net where you can learn more about the ministry, see stories, pictures, video from 20 years of Olympic ministries so far, 10 different Olympics, 5 summer, 5 winter. And you can learn about how you can join the BTR support team, where we ask you to pray, give, and share. And so we value your partnering with us as we seek to take the gospel to the world during the Olympic Games. So Sydney 2000 was my first Olympics, and it was a Summer Olympics. And 2 short years later, I was on my way to Salt Lake City, Utah for the 2002 Winter Games in Salt Lake City. Obviously, a lot had transpired since the summer of 2000 in Sydney. And one of the things I'll talk about on a later episode is how 9/11 has impacted the Olympic ministry in my experience and my time of being involved. But I loved Salt Lake City. I loved the Winter Olympics. I knew very little about all the Olympics, summer or winter, but I certainly knew less about winter than summer. And I'd never been to Utah, never been that far northwest in the States, and was really looking forward to it. And it was a beautiful, beautiful city between Salt Lake City and Park City, where they had a lot of the events. Just a beautiful area, especially in the wintertime. But I'd never been there before. And but one of the things I discovered in Salt Lake that has held true is that when it comes to being at the Olympics, I typically get people, when they first hear that, one of the questions I get is, well, what events have you seen? And I get that because, if you're sitting at home in St. Louis or in, Louisiana, you're watching the events and you're watching the sporting competitions. And so it's natural to say, well, if you're going to be in the Olympic City, obviously you're seeing events. Well, we have been able to do that, but that is not why we go. Now, that may sound ironic, but the fact is that the Olympics are the atmosphere and the platform which we are using to engage in gospel conversations. And so it is unique. It is incredible. It is beautiful. I'm incredibly blessed to be there. But we're not just going to events every day. Because one, we don't have the time, and B, we don't have the money. It is very expensive, and even more expensive now than ever before to purchase Olympic event tickets. And so we've been fortunate to get some over the years through team members who work hard to track those down, and many times generously just donate them to team members so that they can go into the venues, because it is another level of opportunity for gospel conversations when you're in the venues. And that's the things that's what I learned, especially during the Winter Games in Salt Lake in 2002, is how the events, especially those winter events, in particular, I'll be talking about bobsledding and downhill skiing, 2 events that I got to see for the first time when I was in Salt Lake. Those events are very gospel conversation friendly. And it makes sense when you think about the events. So let's talk about bobsledding. when you have an event ticket to a winter sport, typically you get on a bus, and the buses take you from like the hub of where the Olympics are happening, like in Salt Lake City, and then they take you to where like the bobsled track is, or where the downhill skiing event is located. And that's typically a good drive. I mean, I remember being a couple hours outside of Salt Lake. It could have been further. I can't remember. Italy, same way. All the Winter Olympics is whenever you go to an outside event, it's typically a significant bus ride. And so, but when you get there, you like at the bobsled track, you're at the bottom of the track when you get dropped off. So you just start walking and you're going to the top of the track. And the top of the track is typically where all the excitement is, right? It's where you see them take off, do the running, and then jumping into the bobsled, and then they're gone. And then those of us who are at the top of the track, or like everybody else sitting at home, we're watching the screens because we can't see the whole track, to see what happens as they make their way down. As you know, the sport of bobsled, it's a very quick sport. It's very fast time. So the actual length of focus on parts of the event are very short, with pretty good lengths of time in between. And so we would start at the top, and we would watch several of the starts and, get excited about that. And it really is an interesting thing to witness and to experience, because it's incredibly high skill of athleticism on display. And we do that for a while. And so, a team would go, and then we find ourselves with several minutes before the next team's ready to go, and the track is ready, and they're ready to send the next team. And so what do you do in that time? You start talking to the people around you. And as you're talking to the people around you, you're talking about where they're from. You're talking about how they like the weather, the city, the Olympics. And guess what? Again, you can use the pin trading as a bridge to go from those conversations to a gospel conversation. And the way the event is flowing, you have time to do that. And what's really cool is we would start at the top, and we would watch up there, and we would engage in gospel conversations. And then after a while, we would just kind of start making our way down the track hill. And we would walk along, and then we'd find a spot next to the track. We're like, oh, this is an interesting view. And what's fun is no matter where you are on a bobsled track, if you're at the event, whatever you're witnessing is like that. It's just so fast. Whether you're at the starting line, you're at the finish line, you're on a curve, the bobsled is just zooming past you, And so you're all pumped up for the team to go. They zoom past you. And again, what do? Well, you're waiting for the next team to get ready. You start talking to the people around you. And that's the thing. If you're friendly and you like talking to people, the Olympic ministry is an incredible way to share the gospel, because you're not doing something that isn't natural to you. Yeah, I love Dave Gwynn, my mentor and friend. He has a saying that we want to have relational evangelism with the highest integrity. In other words, it's not about a number. It's not about nickels and noses. It's about being genuine and real, really interested in other people, learning their stories, hearing what enjoying that engagement, and using that then to share the greatest story ever told, the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so that's what the Olympic ministry is about. Downhill was a very similar type sport. Again, we make our way, this was another day, make our way to the downhill event location. And again, you're standing around, and at that time we were just kind of standing around near the finish line. And we see nothing of the event. It's all on TV screens, big screens, until they top the final hill as they're coming down toward the finish line. So you see the finish, at least that's where our tickets were. But you didn't see any of the other of it. So again, you watch the run. It is exciting. It's really neat to be there when they cross the finish line and see their time. But then again, you've got all this time after the skier has run to engage in conversations with people around you. And again, just genuinely getting to know them, and then using the Olympic pin trading to transition to a gospel conversation. It's just nothing like it in the world. So that was my first Winter Olympic experience, Salt Lake City, 2002, and how I learned how to use Olympic events for gospel conversations. Again, you're listening to Beyond the Rings podcast, short stories. This is Jeff Wells. Thanks for joining me. Again, I'd encourage you to go check out our website, beyondtherings.net, where you can find out how you can pray, give, and share, especially as we're looking forward to Paris 2024. Thank you again for being with us today. Catch you next episode.